Hi, everyone. I'm Blair. I'm the community manager for Prison Yoga Project, and welcome to Futures, where we talk with leaders in youth justice. This is our summer and fall series, and everyone, please welcome Ali Atman Smith of the Holistic Life Foundation. I'm going to read some bios, and then they're going to lead us in a centering opportunity. So we can start with Ali. Ali Smith has almost 20 years of experience teaching yoga, mindfulness, meditation internationally to a broad demographic spectrum that includes schools, retreat centers, wellness centers, mental crisis facilities, detention centers, drug treatment centers, the corporate setting, as well as private one-on-one sessions. He co-founded the Holistic Life Foundation in 2001. During his tenure as executive director, his leadership helped guide HLF to grow an organization that employed over 50 people and served communities worldwide. He is a published author, written several curriculums, and is a pioneer in the field of yoga and mindfulness in education, as well as trauma-informed yoga and mindfulness, developing best practices that are used around the world. He is taught in 7 countries on 3 continents. Everyone, please welcome Ali. And then we have Atman Smith. Atman Smith is one of the co-founders of the Holistic Life Foundation. Since 2001, he has been teaching yoga and mindfulness to a diverse population, including underserved and high-risk youth in Baltimore City public schools, drug treatment centers, wellness centers, and colleges. A native of Baltimore, Atman attended the University of Maryland, College Park, where he was a letter award winner for the university men's basketball team. He graduated with a BA in criminology and criminal justice. Everyone, please welcome Atman. Thank you both so much for being here. I have been a very big fan for probably about the last decade. I found out about Holistic Life Foundation because of a documentary that I was making. And so I got to meet you guys about 10 years ago, and my partner at the time was the director of the film. And we were just so excited to meet you. So I've been watching your journey since. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
And will you lead us in a centering opportunity as well?
Definitely.
Great.
All right. So if everyone could maybe move to the edge of your seat, have your feet grounded, back, neck, and head aligned. And if you could maybe grab your right ankle and bring your leg behind your head. Just kidding. We try to keep it light. You know, a lot of people are really robotic when they're teaching yoga and mindfulness. We try to, keep it light. People love laughing. And, if you can sprinkle in a little bit of laughter with educating people, then, people will remember what you teach. While physical practices are important, just because like Dr. Bessel van der Kolk said, body keeps the score. Physical practices are very important. Maybe not putting your leg behind your head, but physical practices releases that trauma that's stored in the body. This is a variation of a loving kindness practice. In this human experience, it's just human nature to kind of love other people before you love yourselves. You take care of other people before you take care of yourself, and that kind of leads to burnout and a lot of other negative emotions. This practice is all about filling your inner foundation full of self-love and taking care of yourself so you can love and take care of others going forward, once again, without burning yourself out. So for real this time, move to the edge of your seat, have your feet grounded, back, neck, and head aligned, and I invite you or welcome you to close your eyes if you feel comfortable enough. If you don't, you can just soften your gaze 9/10 of the way, or you can keep your eyes open. It's all dependent on your comfort level, but we usually suggest to close your eyes so you can limit the distractions. And all the breathing that we're going to do is in and out through our nose. So we're going to take a couple deep breaths together. So everyone inhale long, slow, and deep through your nose, filling your stomach up with air like it's a balloon. Fill it all the way up. Then exhale, push all that air out. Squeeze your stomach in, belly button to your spine. Inhale deep again with that long, slow, deep breath through your nose, filling your stomach up with air. Fill it all the way up. And exhale, push all that air out, push it all out. Inhale deep one more time with that long, slow, deep breath through your nose, filling your stomach up with air, fill it all the way up. And exhale, push all that air out, push it all out. Now you can just breathe on your own at a nice natural pace. Don't put any effort into it. Just make sure you're breathing in and out through your nose. And we're going to start using our imaginations. With every inhale, we want to feel and see ourselves pulling in all the positivity that the earth has to offer us inside our body with that in breath. So really feel and see that as you inhale. And as you exhale, push out that negativity from within, stress, anger, jealousy, regret, sicknesses or ailments, anything at all that's inside of us that we know that's not healthy for us. We want to use our imagination and see and feel it leave our body with the breath. So once again, on that inhale, pulling in that positivity from the earth. And on that exhale, pushing out that negativity from within. Once again, whatever that looks and feels like to you, that's all we're going to feel and see as we breathe. And just like in life, when you try to do a silent reflection, loving kindness practice, or meditation, distractions can arise. If you do get distracted, just know that it's the nature of the human mind. Have empathy towards yourself, acknowledge the distraction, whether it's a thought, sound, or sensation. Don't fight with it, just let it pass naturally. And when it does pass, just recenter yourself back on the breath. And once again, on that inhale, pulling in that positivity from the earth. And on that exhale, pushing out that negativity from within. Once again, whatever that looks and feels like to you, that's all we're going to feel and see as we breathe. All right, we're going to use our imaginations again. And this time, with every inhale, we want to feel and see ourselves pulling in all the healing oxygen from the trees, plants, and bodies of water. And we want to feel and see it energize and replenish our internal muscles, bones, and organs. So with every inhale, feel and see that happen. And with every exhale, we want to feel and see ourselves pushing out the stale carbon dioxide, feeding the trees and plants that gave us oxygen. Once again, with every inhale, we want to feel and see ourselves pulling in all the healing oxygen, energizing our muscles, bones, and organs. And with every exhale, we want to feel and see ourselves pushing out that stale carbon dioxide, feeding the trees and plants that gave us oxygen. And this practice is all about extending the time or the amount of breaths that you can remain focused. If you can only stay focused for 3 breaths and you get distracted, once again, have empathy towards yourself. The beautiful thing about this is you can always begin again with this practice. Acknowledge what distracted you, thought, sound, or sensation. Then redirect yourself and try to get 4 breaths and 5 breaths. Once again, it's all about extending the time or the amount of breaths that you can remain focused. It's less of a battle than it is a play, but definitely try to extend the time or breaths that you can remain focused. And once again, right now, we'll focus on that inhale, pulling in that healing oxygen, on that exhale, pushing out that stale carbon dioxide. All right, we're going to use our imaginations again. And this time, with every breath, we're going to focus on all those people that we love, whether it's our family or friends, no matter how far away they live. No matter if they're living or not, love knows no boundaries. So with our breath, all we're going to focus on is sending our loved ones love with our breath. Once again, whatever that looks and feels like to you, that's all we're going to feel and see as we breathe, sending our loved ones love with our breath. And once again, if you do get distracted, have empathy towards yourself. Just know that it's the nature of the human mind. Acknowledge the distraction, thought, sound, or sensation, let it pass, and then begin again focusing on the breath and sending love to your loved ones with that breath. Once again, whatever that looks and feels like to you, that's all we're going to feel and see as we breathe. All right, we're going to use our imaginations again. And this time we're going to focus on all those people that stress you out or make you angry, whether it's family or friends, coworkers or clients, people in your community, politicians, whoever it is that stresses you out or gets you angry or gets under your skin. We're going to send them love with the breath. Even though they stress you out or make you angry, they probably need love more than anyone else. And we all know the rule, whatever you put out there comes back tenfold. So always lead with love. So once again, with our breath, all we're going to focus on is sending love to those people that stress us out or make us angry. We're going to send them love with our breath. This is a great way to evict people from renting space in your mind, or in other words, a release. So once again, with our breath, all we're doing is sending love to those people that stress us out or make us angry. We're sending them love with our breath. And once again, this practice is all about extending the time of breath so you can remain focused. Never beat yourself up if you do lose focus. Just acknowledge the distraction, then redirect yourself. And then once again, try to extend the time or the amount of breaths that you can remain focused. And once again, right now, we're focused on sending love to those people that stress us out or make us angry. We're sending them love with our breath. All right, we're going to use our imaginations again. And we sent love to those people that we love. We sent love to people that stress us out or make us angry. Now it's time to send love to the most important person in your life, and that's yourself. Once again, starting with that inner foundation full of self-love and taking care of yourself makes it that much easier to love and take care of others going forward without burning yourself out. So with your breath, all we're focused on is sending our self-love with the breath. Once again, filling that inner foundation full of love of self with our breath. Once again, whatever that looks and feels like to you, that's all we're going to feel and see as we breathe, sending ourselves love with our breath. And, just another reminder, if you do get distracted, just acknowledge it. Don't beat yourself up. Then, you can always begin again with this practice and redirect yourself back to the breath. And once again, sending our self-love with our breath. Whatever that looks and feels like to you, that's all we're going to feel and see as we breathe. All right, we're going to use our imaginations again. And this time with our breath, we're going to send love to planet Earth or Mother Earth and all the inhabitants that reside within, animals, plants, humans, inanimate objects, anything at all that resides within planet Earth and planet Earth or Mother Earth herself. We're going to send love with our breath. Once again, whatever that looks and feels like to you, that's all we're going to feel and see as we breathe. Sending love to planet Earth or Mother Earth and all the inhabitants that reside within. Sending love with our breath. And one more reminder, just, it's all about extending the time or breaths that you can remain focused. Never beat yourself up if you do lose focus. Acknowledge it, redirect yourself. And then once again, try to extend the time or breaths that you can remain focused, less of a battle than it is a play. I definitely try to extend the time or breath that you can remain focused, sending love to planet Earth and all the inhabitants that reside within. All right, if your eyes are closed, you can keep them closed. And we're going to slowly bring ourselves away from the breath and back to our bodies. So we can start off just by wiggling our toes, wiggling our fingers, rolling our ankles and wrists. You can do a neck roll both ways, just to stretch your neck out. And then you can slowly, slowly blink your eyes open and come back to your senses. I guess the dope thing about that practice that we've seen is the way that kids kind of change from being reactive to responsive. Like, in neuroscience, they talk about neuroplasticity, creating new ways of thinking. And, over time, not right away, but we've seen kids go from reactive to not being able to peacefully resolve conflicts, to being able to like say things like, well, I don't even have to give those people no thoughts. All I do is send them love when they get under my skin. So, it's a process, but, we have seen that, this practice amongst many others helps, change the way kids think. And, yeah, that's about it. Hopefully y'all enjoy the practice.
Incredible. Thank you. Yeah, I could really feel my heart warm up. I could feel a deep softening. Thank you for always reminding us to return back to, right? And like being soft with ourselves. Beautiful centering practice. Thank you from our audience. Will you both share your first memory of yoga or mindfulness? Whatever, if there's a memory that you either remember hearing about it or practicing.
Sure, I'll go first. I guess, me and Ali are brothers. So we grew up in, like we call them hood hippies. They were into like being vegan before it was even, a trendy thing. And, our dad, was a hood hippie, but he was also a drill sergeant. And, he used to make us wake up maybe like 2 hours before school started and meditate, not for 2 hours, but he used to make us meditate every single morning before going to school. So I think that is my first memory of yoga, mindfulness, meditation, and all that type of stuff. How about you there, Ali?
I guess I'll go with something a lot later. I'd say we got out of meditation around the time I was in the 5th grade when our parents got divorced, and didn't really meditate again until much later, about junior year of college. So I'd say I'll go with, like, as an adult, first memory was us going to our godfather, the one that showed our dad, that got our dad into the practice, who was our teacher. Most people that got into yoga in like the early 60s and never got out of it. Going to him and asking to teach us, and then like being in his house, like drinking beer, watching NBA playoff basketball, and him being like, well, if you guys want to learn this, show up at 4 a.m. tomorrow morning. And I remember we got up, we're at his house like 3:45 in the morning, knocking on the door. We went out to his backyard, and that started our journey as adults. I remember the mosquitoes sucked. I remember there were mosquitoes all over the place. You're trying to like swat the mosquitoes and like still stay focused. But I think that was my first memory as an adult, was like out in his backyard, just with our mats and our blankets out and just getting back into practice.
That's absolutely amazing. What do you remember the practice? One of the first practices that he was instructing you guys on?
Yeah, how to take a deep breath. Just retraining us on the breath. There was a next thought meditation. And at that point, he was getting us into like Kundalini and Kriya yoga. So he was like introducing us into Sat Kriya.
Awesome. I think that's really special to be like born into a Dharma family, right? Like a family that already has these practices. Will you talk to us about how you feel like that really informed and shaped your life? Well,
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that they planted the seeds for what we're doing today. Not only were we vegans and they had us meditating before school, but they also sent us to a Quaker school, Friends School of Baltimore, where it was like in their whole philosophy, mindfulness was intertwined, like stewardship of the earth, um, meeting for worship, where you sat down in silence and for an hour, and if you got inspired, you could stand up and say something, and then sit back down. And then they always stress take a breath or a pause before you say or do anything. And then we also went to a non-denominational church. If anyone's ever read Autobiography of a Yogi, it was a Self-Realization Fellowship Church. And instead of like the normal traditional churches that most of my homeboys went to growing up, we had like incense going, we had meditations at the beginning of class, crystals in all the windows. And the guy that led the church, the main philosophy was truth is one, people call it by various names. So he would read from different spiritual books. He would start off with the Bible, just because that's what most people's foundations are in the Western world. Then he would read something from the Gita, read something from the Quran, read something from Native American texts, and just show the unity within diversity. And just once again, the truth is one, people call it by various names. And I think that having most of our behavior shaping institutions being the foundation of them being yoga and mindfulness and being one with the earth, that kind of set us up for what we're doing now through Holistic Life Foundation.
Yeah, and both of our parents worked with kids too. Like our dad was a teacher and a basketball. I mean, he was most famous for being a basketball coach, but he coached. We were talking about the other day. He coached, I think it was 6 sports: track and field, football, baseball, basketball, swimming, and table tennis. He had 6 sports, but basketball was his thing. And our mom ran a mentoring program. So it was like, I think the working with youth kind of came, I mean, it didn't come naturally, but it was kind of where we're, so I think between the yoga and the mindfulness, the meditation, the breath work, and then our parents working with kids as well, kind of set us up perfectly for us to end up doing the stuff with the Holistic Life Foundation.
will you, and please take as long as you want, because I love your origin story and I want our audience to hear everything as well, but will you tell us about the journey of starting the Holistic Life Foundation?
Yeah, so it started off partying in college was how the Holistic Life Foundation started. Atman and I met Andy out, the other co-founder of the Holistic Life Foundation, out partying at the University of Maryland College Park. And then like just late night conversations around the world and things that we saw, things that we didn't kind of agree with or kind of saw. It seemed like we saw a lot of suffering and a lot of apathy about it. The people were suffering, the planet was suffering, and we decided, and somehow our partying like morphed into this weird book club where we would just sit around and read books and watch documentaries all the time. And we were trying to find some answers because we were trying to figure out what we were going to do once we finished up with school. I mean, actually, I don't even know. I think we were just looking for answers at that point. I don't even think we were looking, trying to figure out what we we're going to do once we finished school, but just looking for some answers for why the world was the way it was. And got a lot of books on spirituality, religion, ancient history, like creational theories, like the environment, astronomy, astrology, like anything we get our hands on to try to start putting stuff together. And it was one of those things that we came with more questions than we did answers. Like we weren't really getting any answers to anything. Like the more we read, the more questions we had. We noticed that one of the common themes was like, that stuff about the answers being within, but that just didn't really make sense to us at that point in our lives. Like I said, our godfather was our teacher, and he had this huge, his dining room table. Like everybody, like we would like when we ate meals at his house, it was always, he had like this island in the kitchen. They had all these hot bar stools around. We would eat there. His wife's like weekend breakfasts would like cover the entire table. It was like there was no dining room table. The dining room table had been taken over as his altar. So he had all these books on his altar. Atman found this book by Yogi Bhajan, and it had all these crazy meditations you could do in it. like sustain yourself without food and all these other crazy things that you could do. And I think us being like Star Wars and comic book nerds were like, oh wow, this is like how you become a Jedi or something. You know what I mean? Like it was like one of those things where so we went up to him, we were like, we want to learn these practices. And he was like, why? And we told him about the Jedi thing. He was like, it's kind of like a distraction on the path. Like that's not really what this is for. It's actually to get in touch with your true universal self and kind of let it shine and help awaken it in others. And but those are kind of like side effects along the way, like things that happen, but it's not what you get caught up on. But it distracts people, but that's not what it's about. Told us that we had to agree to teach as many people as possible because he liked his solitary lifestyle, and we had to meet him at his place at 4 a.m. that next morning. And that started our journey. And we went deep into our practice for a while, moved back into the house that we grew up in. And this is in West Baltimore, where the Freddie Gray uprisings happened, where the Wire was filmed. Like that's our home base neighborhood. When we grew up there, it was a lot different. This is pre-crack when we grew up there. So it was like a big family, like a lot of homeowners, everybody looking out for everyone else. And we moved back. It was kind of post-crack era, where the neighborhood was kind of shelled itself. It didn't have a lot of the neighborhood supports that communities had before drugs hit really hard and like kind of decimated the families and the infrastructure. So like there was like a built-in mentoring program. We grew up like we had older brothers and sisters in our neighborhood. They weren't blood related. They were just our older brothers and sisters. And that wasn't there. There was a lot of other things that weren't there. So we were in our homes. We were deep into our practice. And we were, I don't know, we just had like a sense of peace around us, a sense of like inner happiness. And we would have friends that would come visit us and be like, well, why are y'all happy? Like y'all are dead broke. Like y'all live in the hood. Like what do y'all really have to be happy about? And we would look at them and be like, well, I mean, you have financial things, you have material stuff, and like you're miserable. So obviously there's something going on here. And we equated it to our practice. We started a nonprofit because we wanted to do community work. And we thought you had to have a nonprofit to do community work to get grants and stuff like that. So we had a nonprofit. We had a deep practice, but we didn't have any programs. Then the principal of a school, our mom was doing a social emotional learning program that approached about coaching football. We decided to do an after school yoga program, and it all kind of took on a life of its own from there. And this was in like March of 2002 when that happened, when we first started our first program.
Yeah, so we're going on the 20th anniversary, and starting off with that small after school program with fifth graders. At the height of our program before COVID, we were working with 10,000 Baltimore City public school students a week, not to mention people that we've trained around the nation and around the world to facilitate some of our programs. Yeah, so things have definitely grown from 20 years ago as far as our reach and scope and mission.
I feel like the thread that I hear from your childhood and college and then post-college is really like community and how important community is, right? That you had a community of practitioners that really created this container for you in childhood, and then community in school, right? That you were coming together with people and you were asking questions and you were engaging in mindfulness and, curiosity and exploration that way. And then post school, right? And then what you're doing is like, you saw that there was a lack of community and how that created suffering in the individuals around you. So can you talk about how you feel inspired or maybe motivated by supporting community, or maybe why it's important for you?
Yeah, I think growing up, our parents always instilled in us, our mom and our dad, that your family was bigger than just the people that were blood related to you. Like that, like our house was always that community house, whether it was like those older brothers and sisters from our neighborhood that we were talking about, they would be at our house all the time. There would be like, we would have our friends over for like weekends or weeks or summers at a time. It was just like, we had a big extended family. And I think that was instilled in us really early. So I think it made us, I think it really informed the way that we teach, the way that we teach and the way that we run the Holistic Life Foundation. Like you're right, it is about building community. everywhere we go, we try to build community with where we're doing, not just in Baltimore, but anywhere we go. There's like people that we've connected to, people that are become a part of our bigger extended family and Holistic Life Foundation family. And I think just having someone that you can support and that can support you just helps to build the movement. Because I mean, because mindfulness and yoga, it's all about connection with yourself. And once you connect with yourself, connecting with the people around you, like seeing that, I mean, that, and the base of yoga is like the light that shines in me, is the light that shines in everyone and everything else. So it would make sense to make community because you're connecting to other parts of yourself. So it's yeah, and yeah, strength in numbers. Yes, that's definitely it. Strength in numbers. And I got my Warriors t-shirt on. That's all you mentioned, the Warriors. But yeah, I got my Warriors t-shirt on. I don't even know if you saw that or you just happened to mention the Warriors. But yeah, you got to connect with people, and that's how you really make change, is by, like, one person can make a small change, but if you're connecting with people all around you, then that's how you make a big shift.
And I think another way that we create community is, not just doing like one-off programs with kids. Like, the coolest thing is we have like a machine kind of built to support our students that come through our program. They start off in elementary school in our after-school program. Then in middle and high school, where kids really don't get that much support, we have a mentoring program. And then, after high school, if they graduate and go to college, that's great. We're still there to support them. If they don't, we have a workforce development program where, 18 to 24-year-olds, we train them for an entire year. They get workforce develop, or they get on the job training. Also, just to see what it looks like, in action. And then we also, it's very important to instill a personal practice into teachers. A lot of people think they can go to like a weekend training and come back with the curriculum and be able to facilitate yoga and mindfulness. That's cool. People's hearts are in the right place, but it really does take a personal practice to be an effective teacher. And I think one of the coolest thing is like a lot of those kids who was in our first after school program are now either in our programmatic employees, or either they're in our administrative staff. So it's room to grow in our organization. And I think the coolest thing about that is a lot of them might not have opportunities for legal employment outside of our organization. And they're not only able to take care of them financially independent, they're able to take care of themselves, but their parents, their siblings, their kids, and they stand as inspirations for their peers, whether they're out on the streets doing the wrong thing, or either if they're locked up. We are able to bring them in our workforce development program and kind of steer them on the right path. So the whole recidivism rate, that program kind of cancels that out if kids kind of get caught up. So the workforce development program is another way that we form communities and help kids achieve financial independence.
It's really incredible, this huge container that you've created for the individuals in your community. And I really am seeing that, like, you've created safety nets, right? Like all of these things where maybe our institutions fail us, that like no one's left behind and no one's gonna fall off, right? Like you were just really creating this net. And so I know that you said you started with elementary school students. Will you tell us kind of like the framework of all of these three programs, and maybe like your motivation or what it is that you offer? I know that you also teach the teachers so that they can continue this program. Will you tell us more about this elementary school program?
Yeah, sure. Our elementary school program is called Holistic Me. We meet 5 days a week. Of course, yoga and mindfulness every single day. We also have a education component where we try to get kids to be like reading and doing math on grade level, if not beyond. Then we also have a lot of enrichment activities. whether it's woodworking, robotics, martial arts, dance, just a lot of raised bed or urban gardening, just a lot of things that increase the kids' scope that, we saw from going to friends that kind of made us have a bigger scope than our buddies that went to the local elementary school that were actually facilitating the holistic meat program at. And we're just bringing those things that kind of, had us thinking on a different level to our kids. And then we do a lot of field trips, have a lot of like guest speakers to have our kids dreaming on a bigger level. And, usually, kids in the inner city, we call it the big three. They only think they can be like athletes, entertainers, or drug dealers, you know what I mean? And, having our kids exposed to other career paths is a thing that kind of has our kids achieving at a lot higher level than their peers.
I guess the other elementary school program we have is our Mindful Moment program. But this one goes K through 12. We do it in elementary, middle, and high school. What Atman talked about was after school. This is school-based intervention during the school day. And the way that we do it is we have a recording played over the loudspeaker of mindfulness practices. Some schools play in the morning, some in the morning and afternoon. But it's usually played once during the day or sometimes twice. And we have a room in the school for students in crisis. We set up like an oasis in the school, salt crystals, oil diffusers, plants, waterfalls, you name it, we have it in there to make the place feel calm when you walk through the door. Students can either get referred or self-refer to the room, and they have 15 to 20 minutes, depending upon the school, to recenter themselves and get back to class. Our staff in there, we're not counselors, so we don't counsel the students. It's all about, actually, it starts off with mindful listening and mirroring, because most kids don't have an opportunity to be heard, and being heard is empowering. And it was evidently clear to us when the kids would get referral forms and come to the room, and what their teacher or the administrator wrote on the referral form and said that was the reason they were there wasn't the reason that they told us that they were there. So it's like two different things going on. So we do that. We do some breath work, some mindfulness practices, and with the meditation. Some schools, we send them off with a cup of tea, and then they head back to class. I guess a couple great things about that program are, one, that it changes those opportunities where students do something that might be seen as problematic in the classroom from punitive to empowering. They're used to getting punished for things along those lines, or getting sent to the office, getting sent home. But the empowerment comes in when the students actually go to the room and they actually recenter themselves and they take control of their actions. They recenter themselves and they go back to the classroom. There's a great part, like if you look at the referral rate of students going to the room, it starts off really high in the beginning of the school year, then slowly starts to taper off by the end. And that's because students actually learn, they learn what it feels like to be centered, and they learn what it feels like to start to drift away, and then they learn the practices. So instead of having to go to the room to get recentered, they can catch themselves in the classroom as soon as they start to drift away from center and bring themselves back. And great suspension number data from that school, from the schools that we work with. Robert W. Coleman Elementary School in the Harbor, where the Freddie Gray uprisings happened, hasn't had a suspension in like 8 years. What's Dubai School, Atman? Fort Worthington.
Fort Worthington.
Fort Worthington, the year before we got there, had maybe, I don't know, like 170 suspensions. The year before we got there, after the first year we were there, that number went down to around 53. Then after the second year we were there, that number went down to around 13. And that's across the board. And suspensions are usually a good gauge of what's going on in the school and kids' behavior, because, like it's, you don't want to really have to send kids home, but sometimes you have to if they can't control themselves. And I think it also helps kids to deal with the trauma as well. A lot of those behavior issues that people see in school aren't really, they're not really behavior issues. It has nothing to do with behavior. It has to do with trauma and like parts of the brains being in survival mode and not being access to higher functions. And so it's just like, like, what are you going to do? You're going to send them home and keep punishing these kids, or you can give them some tools to deal with the trauma. So I think that's what we're doing, is giving them skills and tools to be able to kind of recenter themselves, deal with the trauma, and then connect to themselves. And most importantly, like you can't ask someone that doesn't care about or love themselves to love or care about or love other people. So getting them to connect with themselves so they can love themselves, and then in turn that love can kind of ripple out, and they can start to care about themselves and their the fellow students, their community, their and the rest of the world.
I love what you are doing so much. You know, it's like it's simple when it comes down to it, and you're just like providing the container at these schools, and it's clearly it clearly creates quick results too, you know, and you're planting seeds really for all of these individuals for their whole future and their communities and their families, right? Like it's just creating such a huge impact for the work that you do. I feel like I kind of want to talk about two different things. I would love to hear about the tools that you offer for the kids, maybe more like specific mindfulness practices, or maybe kind of the seeds that you're planting. And then I also hear that, you know, the teachers are responding to the students differently. So maybe you can tell us about, you know, how you instruct teachers or how you can shift their perspective too.
I guess I'll go with the tools and you can go with the teachers, Ali. As far as tools, we have like a skeleton of, you know, what we teach to, you know, every single demographic. We get highlighted for the stuff that we do with kids because people love taking pictures of kids doing yoga. But, you know, like you said, we work with teachers at, you know, adult drug rehab programs in jails. You know, so we run the gamut as far as demographics, but it's all the same skeleton. We start off with physical practice because once again, you know, you have to make the body a safe place before they can actually get into the breathing and get that restless energy out of their system. So, you know, the practices, you know, we usually do like the sunrise, which, you know, can get that circulation flowing throughout their body and, you know, works out every system of their body. Then, you know, we have some practices called the 5 rights, which is a full physical body workout. The 5 Tibetans, it's called a lot of different things. And then whatever other physical poses and postures that we want to include. Then when the body is a safe space and their body's not restless, we get into specific breathing practices, which can kind of still your mind. And, you know, the thing is with the breathing practices we have, we try to show our kids the practicality of them. So, you know, there are certain practices that help, you know, with stress or anxiety and, you know, stuff like that, where there's stuff that can cool your body down, heat your body up. So, you know, a lot of our kids may live in homes where they may not have heaters, and Baltimore winters get cold. So they have a specific breath to kind of heat their body up. And same thing in the summertime, they may not have air conditioners. So, you know, we have breaths that can kind of cool their body temperature down. But the main reason why we teach the breath is to still your mind. Then, you know, we'll have a short discussion with them, you know, talking to them, you know, about, you know, the different practices, talk to them about, you know, the rule of like what goes around comes around, different talking topics to get them thinking. And then we end off with a meditation because their minds are still, now they can kind of get in touch with that inner peace. And the beauty about the way that we teach is we have a reciprocal teaching model where we may start off for the first couple of weeks of us leading the practices. But if you come to our classes, maybe like a month into it, our students actually become the teachers leading the physical practices, breaths, and even the meditation. So, you know, not only are they impacting their own lives, they're impacting their family and communities. And, you know, we had no idea that the kids were actually going home and teaching their parents. But, the trickle down system, if a parent comes home stressed out from work and they're about to yell at their kid, our kids have gotten slick enough and aware of not only when they're off center, but when the people around them are off center. So, you know, it's been many a times where parents come up to us like, you know, we had no idea this is what yoga mindfulness was. You know, I came home, I guess the stress was written on my face. And then my daughter or son sat me down and taught me a breathing practice or taught me a meditation. My stomach was upset. They may have taught me, you know, a specific breathing practice. So, you know, that's the way to really make a ripple Like our teacher told us, we took his philosophy too. Like, we're not trying to create students, we're trying to create teachers. So, that's basically, the gist of the practices that we do.
Incredible.
Yeah, and when we're working with the teachers, there's, when you work with, or I don't know, for anybody that does work with teachers, like you walk into a room, you're working with teachers, you talk about mindfulness, and initially what they want to do is start working with the kids. We make it a point when we're doing professional development and training with teachers, we don't start off there. We always start off with self-care. It's tough being a teacher. Like there's a reason that teachers burn out. There's a reason that teacher turnover is so high. It's because it's really stressful being a teacher. So we start off with tools and skills that they can use to replenish themselves. They're not trying to pour from an empty cup. Secondary trauma is real, whether teachers want to admit it or not. It's something they're dealing with on a daily basis. So we work throughout most of the first semester that we're working with teachers. We work with that and get them to develop their own personal practice, because that's what's going to help them out the most, is like having that personal practice they can pull from every day, and also to kind of charge the battery up at the end of the day. And then from there, we go to working with the students. So I mean, it's a slow process, but eventually they do get there where they can use the practices with the students, but we feel like you got to be able to have the practice on your own. There was a cool study that we learned about from the Center for Investigating Minds, where they had a bunch of college seniors who were showing signs of stress. You know what I mean? Like they're about to graduate. They had all these things going on in their lives, and they did brain scans. And the students that they scanned showed huge signs of stress in their brain, and they got monks to like be around them and meditate. And just from being around them meditating, they just rescan their brains, and a lot of the signs of stress had gone away in their brains. And people were like, well, nah, that's because they're monks and they have superpowers. Like that doesn't really work for normal people. So they tried it again with people who were just practicing mindfulness, just practicing mindful meditation, and the exact same thing happened. So I mean, just having your own practice helps the students around you. So it's like you can teach them the practices, but having your own inner peace and being able to kind of exude that with students around you, it has an effect. So yeah, it always starts off with that self-care, dealing with secondary trauma, and then being able to work with the students.
And like slow is sustainable, right? Like you're not trying to make quick fixes, because that doesn't really work, right? Like, yeah, maybe there might be a couple quick results here and there, but it's like you're creating the future through all of your programming. And you're like, okay, yeah, maybe we're going to work with these teachers for a whole year, but they're the container for their classroom. So for them to be able to be strong and for them to expand their capacity through personal practice is integral for the space that they hold for their students. Which is amazing. Yeah. And then will you tell us about the workforce development program?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that Ali always says is like in our infancy stage in the Holistic Life Foundation, people were loving our results and loving the impact that we were having in schools and with kids and in neighborhoods, where, a lot of people came to us with wanting us to do programs in their schools and their neighborhoods and stuff like that. And, we had to start turning down the contracts because Ali, Andy, and I, only 3 people. Even though we thought we were like, yeah, we want to save the world. It takes more than 3 people to try to save the world or help the world save itself. But we realized that, the kids that we were working with every single day, that whole reciprocal teaching model, we already had some students that, it would take a little bit of fine tuning as far as, teaching them the teaching nuances, engagement techniques, and stuff like that. And, we, like maybe 12 years ago, we started our first our workforce development program, where we started training 18 to 24-year-olds, where, it did help us expand our scope, but then it also created jobs for that demographic that really might not have legal jobs. And, once again, it helped, inspire the community, because it's a lot of yoga teachers around, and back in the day, people didn't know whether we were teaching yoga or giving kids yogurt. Just because we started 20 years ago, they had no idea, what we were doing. But the beauty of having that workforce development program and having teachers from the community is, it is, people are walking up and down the street, asking people like, yo, can yoga help me stop smoking these cigarettes? Or, is like, how do you meditate? Like, you hear those conversations going on in the hood. And, we can see that shift, there. And, like I said, the workforce development program is all about having the kids have on the job training, personal practice, and then, uh, you know, professionalism. Because a lot of kids come from homes where, people may smoke weed all the time and smell like weed. So we have to like train our kids to what it means to be professional in school settings, engagement techniques, practicality of the practice, and all that stuff. So, after they go through our summer program where they have on the job training, they have like a year-long program where they're partnered with our senior staff so they can like get their teaching nuances together. And then after that year, they fully join our workforce. And, it's been, great seeing the growth of our former students that were in our mentoring program, that are in our workforce development program, not only being in our programmatic staff, but some of them are even in our administrative staff now.
I really like how I'm sure that you've seen over the, working 2 decades and really having it be localized work, right? Because you're like, I heard you say, you're like, oh yeah, we want to save the world, right? And then at some point in time, you're like, oh, like our container can only be this big because there's 3 of us, right? And how you've expanded it in this way. But just really the power of focusing on your community and the impact that you can make in your community and how it ripples out. So yeah, tell me.
I was just gonna say like that what you were just saying, Blair, like help inform the next thing that we're doing with the Holistic Life Foundation, our satellite program. Because like we were trying to figure out, like we were doing all these programs all over the place and they weren't really sustainable because there was no one left to really follow up with the work. And we ended up doing work for about it was like 4 or 5 years on a Mohawk reservation called Akwesasne up in upstate New York. It straddles the Canadian borders, like 2/3 of their territories on the New York side, and the other 2/3 is the other third is on the Canadian side. And it was we were doing work up there, and then we were trying to figure out a way to make it more sustainable. We came up with this satellite program because the best solutions are definitely homegrown solutions. It's not us coming in from the outside. It's people from the community being able to do the work. So we went up there. We sent 2 of our staff up there to live for an entire year. And Atman, Andy, our other co-founder, myself, went up to the reservation for like a week at a time, several times throughout the year to do like really intensive trainings with young people from the reservation. We found a program coordinator from Akwesasne, and we found a group of 18 to 24-year-olds to train. I ended up being a little older. Our goal was 18 to 24-year-olds, but our age ceiling went a little higher. And things have been awesome up there. Like we decided that we needed our staff to live up there to for them to have like some practice mentors. And like you were saying earlier, to build community with the practice. And we kept going back up for training to kind of be able to show them the practices, help them develop their personal practice, and then also to demonstrate what it looked like in action, so we could do some teaching and they could see what we were doing. I think one of our favorite parts of the program was that it wasn't just the people that we were training up there, them actually in schools working. Part of their workday was spending an hour in the morning and practicing with our staff. The staff that moved up from Baltimore, because the reason our staff is so good here in Baltimore is because they're authentic teachers. They all have a personal practice. So that was a part of their workday. And we're going into year 2 of that program. The demand for their programs is skyrocketing. So they're all over the place teaching. We're actually, we haven't found a second city yet, but we're actually looking for a second city to launch our satellite program in because of how well things are going in Akwesasne.
will you talk to us about maybe the communities that they serve, or like the specific places that they're going in and offering these mindfulness and yoga practices for the
Pretty
center?
much like we do in Baltimore, like everywhere. They start off in the schools. That's usually a good entry point. So they're in schools, drug treatment centers, Head Start. They're out in the community. They're in senior centers. I think, did I miss anything out? I think that's pretty much everywhere they are.
I mean, they're doing like we are, like professional developments for teachers and,
Yeah.
stuff like that. Trauma informed panel discussions they're having. So, they're pretty much doing exactly what we're doing in Baltimore, but up there. And I think one of the coolest things is they're putting their own spin on it. I remember when we went up there to do some on-site visits, we love the fact that they would bring their heritage and their traditions into the practices to kind of own it. And, the way that the schools and the students kind of picked up on, the verbiage and, how it became part of the culture of the schools is amazing. And, year one was great. I'm really excited to see what year two looks like.
Mm. What do you feel like what have the teachers come back and said, the teachers that you're training in these communities and these community elders and leaders? What is their feedback of, learning these practices? Because I know, Atman, we spoke last week about this, right? So it's like their practices and culture were stolen from them. And so to be able to offer some skills and tools that they might have already had, right? If it wasn't for massacre and colonization. I would just love to hear if there are personal stories or what these leaders are saying about the practices.
I can jump on that one. So I know one of the best things was that well, not muted. One of the best things was that the elders talked about how like this was exactly what they were looking for. Like when we pitched the program to them, like the chiefs of the community, and they were saying that like, like they're doing a great job with reconnecting to their culture, but they were having trouble getting people to reconnect with their spirit. And they think that this was a great opportunity to help people reconnect with their spirit. Like Atman was saying, like it's cool to see them translate the practices into Mohawk spirituality. So like a way that we might describe something, same practice, but they just describe it a little differently. So it's cool that like the taking the ownership and the empowerment of the practices, and it's awesome to see. I mean, like it was crazy going up there. I guess this was in June or July was the last time we were up there. Maybe it was June. It was June because it was right before the school year ended. And seeing them like start, they didn't get to start in the schools until February because of COVID. So it's like they didn't have a full school year, but like things were going so well that every single school wanted more of the programming. And then the schools that didn't have programming wanted programming. And then like even schools outside of the districts they were in wanted programming. And then they were like being pulled to do programs on the Canadian side of it. So it was just like people heard about it and then people saw it in action. And it was just like, all right, we all want this and we all want as much of it as possible.
Mm. I really do feel like there's this momentum that's building, and then all of a sudden, like the floodgates are going to open. And I, at least this is my hope or my prayer, right? That there will kind of just be, the finishing of the shift, right? That like yoga and mindfulness can be incorporated everywhere. It really just needs to like finish weaving. And so that it can be really part of the foundation of our culture and our community, and how these practices really support us on an individual, family, community level. So I think the last thing that I'll kind of, maybe we can weave in this as well, and then I want to open it to our community, it's community too. I kind of put this tagline as, the work that you're doing is disrupting the school to prison pipeline. Do you want to just comment on that and maybe what you've seen in the community, or how you feel like the work is supporting different paths for individuals?
I mean, I think one way it directly interrupts the school to prison pipeline is because a lot of these kids really have no other way to resolve conflicts other than with their fists. but it gives kids a chance to think or take a breath before they actually do something and are responsive to things. And in the cities, or in the hoods, that could be a life or death, thing where if you're just reacting to things, that's where people usually feel bad about what they did. But if you can take a breath and respond, it kind of makes you choose it enables you to be able to resolve the conflicts peacefully. And I know a lot with our kids, that's what has been going on, is they make better decisions even if they're in traumatized communities. They still thrive and make the right decisions just because they do have these practices to, even if their home life is chaotic, they have that inner home, that inner peace that they can kind of go into to kind of take them away from the chaos. So the mindfulness, meditation, yoga, breath work, and all that stuff is definitely a way to be able to disrupt that school to prison pipeline and help them achieve on a lot higher level than they ever thought was capable.
Ali, do you have anything to add or anything else you want to say about that too?
I guess just employment. I mean, it's the other thing. I mean, a lot of the kids that we hire are students of ours that may have been, they're the legal job options that they have aren't going to take care of them and aren't going to get them the things that they want or need. So it's like, well, what are my other options? And they end up out on the streets, and it just becomes good for them to be able to work, uplifting their community, make a decent living doing it, get health insurance, have options for retirement plans. You know what I mean? Like a legit job that they can support themselves and the people around them with. So I think that's another way. And I think a lot of the thing with that we were talking about before with the connection part of it, a lot of kids that we work with that are coming up, there's a sense of like hopelessness and helplessness because they only feel connected to the things that they can physically and tangibly see and touch. So like their small neighborhood is what they're connected to, and that's what they think their reality is, and that's it. And it becomes pretty bleak because a lot of the neighborhoods in Baltimore have zero resources, and then they see on TV like people with nice cars and nice houses, and there's all these beautiful things, but they don't have access to them, and they don't see like a tangible way legally to be able to access any of these things or even to just experience them. And we've noticed with our students, once they connect to themselves, then they realize that they're connected to something bigger. But without that connection to themselves, it seems like that, like just their physical, tangible environment, like right around them, is what they're connected to. But the kids that we work with, they are able to connect to themselves. They get connected to the world, and then their scope increases. They see that like other things are accessible to them, and it's not just those few square blocks around them. And then they start to dream on a bigger scale. They start to try to achieve on a bigger scale, and it's beautiful to see. They start to blossom. They start to open up, and they start to do things that their peers that aren't into the practice are into, because their peers that aren't into the practice might still be stuck in certain ways of thinking and acting, when they're like, well, nah, like I don't have to, that's not my only choice. And it comes from that connection with themselves.
I'm hearing that be reflected in the Indigenous First Nation. Can you say the name again of the tribe you're working with?
Akwesasne.
Akwesasne. So
yeah, they're the Mohawk tribe, but in the Akwesasne territory.
okay, thank you. So working with the Mohawk tribe, right? So it's like, that's what these elders were saying. That sounds very similar, right? They're connecting with their spirit, right? So it's like personal practice, right? It's like always coming back to the self, right? So I think with that, I want to open it up to our community. So for anyone who hasn't been, you can, on your Zoom bar, there's going to be a Q&A box. And what I'll do is you can put your questions in there, and then I will ask them out loud, and you can direct it either at Ali and Atman or just to a general question. And so we have one question in here. Okay. And we have, how is Holistic Life Foundation primarily funded?
We do a lot of fee for service programming, where, we don't ever charge any of our clients, but we do charge schools, school systems, districts, and stuff like that. Um, we are supported by a lot of foundations, whether it's family foundations or, local foundations or national foundations. And then we also have, since we're a 501c3 a nonprofit organization, individual folks don't donate to us as well. So, they always say the best way to kind of sustain your organization is by streamlining it in from a couple different sources. So, that's what we've been trying to do to keep ourselves afloat during the course of these 20 years.
And maybe this is a good opportunity too, like, will you pitch to our audience? Like, what is the best way that we as a fellow Sangha and community too can support Holistic Life Foundation?
I mean, like Ali was talking about, our Aquasasane program for the Mohawk Nation is going into year 2. And if you go to our website, we are asking for donations to support that, just because it is so important. And we're making like a huge inroads in there, expanding to Canada and stuff like that. So, we have a link to Network for Good on our website, website hlfinc.org. Tell a friend to tell a friend. But yeah, that's one way that, you all can support our programming.
And also, we're looking for a second city for our satellite program. So if you all are somewhere and you want to figure out a way to partner with us, we would love to hear from you, because we can't do it without, support from people from the community. Like, it's not something we can just walk in and set up shop. Like, we need strong community partners for it to happen and for it to happen successfully. So if you're interested, you can email, I guess it'd be easiest to email info@HLF. I can put it in the chat, actually.
Yeah. Great. And maybe for anyone listening in this moment or live on Facebook, or someone who might be listening to a recording, will you talk more about maybe some of the qualities that you're looking for within a community? Are you looking for Indigenous communities? Is there something specific you're looking for?
Not at all, because we weren't really looking at for an Indigenous community when we first started. It just happened that that's where all the synchronicities lined up, and like all our program partners lined up. So it was we're just looking for a community with strong community support, so we can find the funding, where we can find good community partners and just make it work. That's all. No specific. It's actually somewhere that's not cold in the winter. I'm going to say that maybe beaches, tropical island, something like that might be good too.
Okay, I like.
But that's not a requirement though. But
but it's like the top of the wish list. You're like, okay, like that. We're calling in the warmth. I know that someone earlier in the chat had said something about wanting to connect to about New York City. Let me just see if I can see this. Okay, Elisa Garcia. She said would like to talk about the possibility of a second city. Our org is launching programs. We're also searching for personal partners. We are outside of New York City and New York. And then I'll kind of copy their email. Let's see if that works. Okay, and then, oh, great, we've got more questions. They're rolling in, so we'll keep going.
Whoever that is in Tulum, yeah, send your information. Inglewood, San Diego, all 3 of you all send your information, please.
Awesome. This is also, like my title is Community Engagement Manager, but that's, being and building community and making connections, being a bridge builder. Is a thing that brings me such great joy. So I'm really happy seeing all these connections being made. We have Doe asking, I feel as if I have a million questions, my friends. I'm going to keep my questions simple. What are the steps to explore satellite programs and receive training? I'm currently in a foundational training at Prison Yoga Project, a new graduate of the 200-hour Hatha Yoga here in Tucson. I'm searching, seeking, and showing up for the next timely steps to take and help my community get to where we want it to be. So maybe just like talk about being involved in your programming and how people can make those first steps.
So as far as the satellite program, we have a checklist that we send out to people that we developed, just to see like, hey, do you have these supports in your community? And then we can make it work from there. As far as programs, we do trainings all over the world. So we travel to different places to facilitate trainings. We've been all over the place to do it. We love to travel. We love to teach. So that can happen. We also do a training annually, hosted at different places. It's usually hosted at the Omega Institute every summer. But yeah, we do trainings all over the place. And just locally, if you want some support, starting small is always the way to do it. I feel like you've been talking about that a lot, Blair, like going slowly. Don't just rush out there and like, hey, I'm by myself, I'm gonna do a school-wide initiative. Like start small, collect some data, make some change, keep it moving. And then yeah, I think you got to do it that way.
And I love what you're saying about collecting data too. And I think our assistant director, Nicole, would be proud of me for pitching this too. So it's like, if you're wanting resources and support, you can always contact us as well. We have budgets and ways of pitching. So I think that that's also what we're here for. And I'm sure that Ali and Atman are, would be willing to share resources or support, you could sign up to like tutor and mentor, do a training with them. Like we want to share resources so we can continue to grow and expand these opportunities, because we can't do it all alone. And so we have, I think it's Anna. She's got a question and then she has a comment. She said, LOL, South Louisiana stays warm in the winter and we have a coast. So it sounds like maybe she's pitching Southern Louisiana as well. So she asks, do you all help schools to get grants to pay for your programs, or do they usually do this on their own before or when they approach you to teach? We're in the first 3 years of doing this in our public school system in Lafayette, Louisiana, and I'm trying to help teachers and admin solve logistical questions in order to provide more yoga and mindfulness programming. Amazing.
I mean, a lot of the schools that we work with are Title I schools, and they usually have funds allocated for behavioral type of programming. So if you kind of go in and talk to a principal and show them data on how it's going to help their school, help increase attendance, bring down their suspensions, referrals, and increase test scores, they'll figure out a way to carve out some of the funding to be able to give to you. But some of our programs also do get funded through grants and stuff like that as well. Like our after school program was a 21st Century Community Learning Centers grant, which enabled us to be able to have all those enrichment activities and help include different partners in that program. But a lot of it, like I said, a lot of the way that we have been sustaining our organization and paying our staff so well is having fee-for-service programs, just because there is funding, whether it's Title I schools, private schools, whatever, they have funding if they see the importance in it. And principals would love anything that will help out their school culture. And these programs, you just have to find a way to kind of make them see the importance of the program. And there's so much neuroscience now proving the benefits of these practices that it's a lot easier than it was 20 years ago to get the funding for these programs.
I feel like there's so many resources, and this is also again about like making these connections, right? So like, oh, someone knows someone and we can kind of get in here. And then again, Ali talking about, showing the numbers, right? So it's like when we were kind of in a result oriented world, although that might not be our motivation for pitching programming. If we can pitch the science and we can offer the results, right? Like the suspension numbers, that could be enough really to get a school to sign on and support it. So really just back to the things that I don't always love as much of the tracking, but it really is important. We have a question from Eva. How does your program relate or differ from Yoga Ed's programs for schools and yoga for youth at risk? If you're familiar with Yoga Ed.
I'm not familiar with what Yoga Ed teaches. Could you give us a little background on the way that they, or maybe you can, I'm not sure.
Yeah, so I did their RCYT program, so the Registered Children Yoga Teaching Program. And so What I think, yoga ed, it feels like they kind of pull in two different communities. I feel like there's a lot of teachers that end up coming in, and then there's a lot of yoga teachers that want to teach children. So they kind of have these two streams of communities, at least what it felt like when I went through their training. So they offer programming or tools for teachers that want to incorporate yoga and mindfulness into the classroom. So I know that we kind of launched a little like cross initiative with yoga ed. Priscilla also is in the training right now. So we're working specifically with training of working with incarcerated youth or maybe system impacted youth. So I'm not sure exactly if on this call we could talk about the relationship. I think that they're closely related. I'd say that maybe the overarching umbrella or theme within this is that they're all trauma-informed practices. And that's, I think, the biggest skill or the biggest perspective that we take in working with, I think, all kids, but working specifically with system-impacted youth, is having a learned awareness and understanding of trauma and how it impacts the lives and the nervous system of these children, and then offering practices that way. So I'd say, to wrap it up, that they're highly trauma-informed practices.
And I also think that, we definitely have the similarity with us, when we do train the teachers, professional development, to give them tools to, help, with self-care, and then, elementary techniques to be able to bring into their classroom. But the other thing that we do is we bring staff into the schools to be able to facilitate the programs. A lot of times teachers are overwhelmed. So, adding one other thing to their plate can be a little overwhelming. So, we try to, provide our staff or bring our staff in there to be able to provide these tools to help, with creating that culture in the school. So I guess that is one of the, from what you said, it sounded like that, the yoga ed gives the teachers tools, but, like I said, sometimes, they have enough on their plate where, that might, it might last for maybe like a month or so, then they might have something else added to their plate and something else. So it might fall by the wayside. So, it's, I think one of the, best things that we do is what we have our staff who, look like the students, and they come in and have, we give them verbiage about trauma-informed practices, but since they are from those communities, they understand where these kids are coming from, so they can relate to them. And then having the tools on top of that, that I think that's, another reason why, our outsourcing ourselves to schools has been so successful.
So looking that we've got about 10 minutes left, who we end up having in our community, and a lot of people that come into these webinars as well, maybe they are program managers, or they are people that are facilitating in facilities. Maybe they're teachers or social workers. What's any advice or any wisdom that you want to share with our community? Atman, we can start with you.
All right. Something that I would share, always, make sure your cup is full. You don't want to be going in and being of service and your cup is empty. So whatever it is to, fill your cup up, whether it's personal practice, whether it's getting out in nature, whether it's gardening, whatever it is, just make sure you're doing things in life to make your soul smile. And then that way you'll be that much more present, grounded, and you will be of service that much more. And then also, when you teach, don't have any expectations. When you think that, something is supposed to be a certain way, you might get let down. One thing our teacher always told us was, give 110%, but give the results to the universe. So I know that's, one thing that has helped us out when, we're teaching and the kids are off the hook. We know that we did the best that we could that day, and, just to begin again the next day. And, once again, give the results to the universe.
I'd say for me, one is, excuse me, have your own practice. It's way easier to teach from a place of experience than a place of theory. Like if you read it in a book and you try to walk in and teach it. So like be authentic. It helps you to also embody the practice. You can talk, like if you're talking about being present, being mindful, and you're yelling at the students, like you're not really embodying what you're trying to teach. So I think the kids get it. They feel it from you when you're not only talking about it, but when you're embodying it. Coming from a place of love is always important. A lot of kids don't get love from a lot of places. So I mean, if you can like teach from a place of, and not just walk around saying I love you to everybody, but again, embodying love, treating yourself with love, treating the kids with love, and then the people around you, the kids start to pick up on that as well. And I guess also listening to your students. A lot of times you might go in there with something that you want to teach, but if you just listen to what the students are saying, and not just with your ears, but with your heart too, like they'll let you know what they're craving for and what they want and what they need. So I think that's why we always go towards like walking into a classroom with a toolbox instead of a curriculum. Because if you have a toolbox, you can pull out the right tools and use it. If you have a curriculum, you're kind of tied to teaching what's on that page. So yeah, just really, really deeply listening to your students and hearing what they need. And that way you can support them and then you can teach to what their struggles are. So it's not like you're teaching over their head, like you're speaking to the things that they're struggling with in their lives and you're giving them solutions. And that way they can live a lot happier and more inward and outwardly peaceful life.
It gives them like an immediate opportunity to apply the practices, right? And then they have a lived experience of using these practices. And they're like, oh, okay, like this works. Or maybe I feel different, or this helps me. And so, yeah, I really love this coming in. We're like, you're preparing the teachers, but you're not going in with kind of a checklist, right? Because then it's like, you're actually able to be open and you're able to receive what's happening in the classroom. And then you're like, oh, okay, I'm evaluating the situation. I'm hearing what this person's saying. I know this tool, and then they're like, whatever their internal dialogue is too, right? Like, oh, I use this practice for this emotion. Let's work with this. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, let's do one more little pitch. So what are ways? So donating, signing up for trainings, connecting. Are there ways? Do you guys have social media? What's a way that we can spread your work as well to other communities?
Sign up for our mailing list, and then you can share the mailing list or share the mailing with your email list or whatever. But our signing up for our we do a newsletter once a month. You'll know exactly what we have going on. Projects that we're working on, fundraising initiatives, any and everything we're doing, you'll see in our newsletter.
Okay, awesome. I'm going to make sure that we share the link to your website and this newsletter on the Facebook, on the chats after this too. What's next for you guys? What are you guys looking at for the rest of the year?
Getting back into schools. Helping kids. I mean, there's a lot of kids out there that have been haven't been in a building in like a year and a half. So, just helping them to get resettled, help them to get recentered, giving them skills and tools to deal with like a lot of the fear and the anxiety and the trauma that they're dealing with from being at home for a year and a half and just kind of being scared about everything. More traveling and teaching. We've got some projects coming up. Again, we're still looking to identify our second satellite city. Strengthen things up in Akwesasne to help them to expand or help us to expand even more and help more people in the region. And just getting ready to kick off our 20th year of programming. We started our first program was in March of 2002. So pretty soon we'll be in March of 2022, which is crazy to say, but just like seeing how much things have grown in those 20 years of us delivering programs in Baltimore and around the world.
Please let us know. I'm planting the seed right now for March 2020. March 2022. We want to celebrate with you, right? So, whatever media campaign or anything that you're doing, or group meditation, we want to support you. So we're so excited to be connected. I'm really happy that we had such an incredible response from our community as well. Thank you both for taking the time to be here and be present. And yeah, thank you for the incredible work that you're offering to your community. So yes, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us
Thank
and
you.
for this platform.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Thank you.